I still remember the knock on the door, a sound so ordinary, so small, and yet it split my world apart. I thought it was a neighbour, maybe a delivery, something simple, but when I opened it, I found strangers on my doorstep, smiling, polite, holding papers in their hands. They looked at me not as visitors, not as neighbours, but as owners. And when they spoke the words, my blood turned to ice. "We've come to see our house." Before I take you deeper into this story, my dear ones, let me ask something from you. If my words touch your heart, if this story reminds you of the weight of family and the cost of betrayal, then share it, subscribe, and let others hear it too. These are not just my memories, they are warnings, lessons carved into the bone of my life. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, to the years when trust was still unbroken and hope still lived in my chest. For no betrayal arrives without roots, and no heartbreak blooms without seeds. The house was never just wood and stone. To me, it was blood, sweat, and breath woven into walls that carried our laughter and our tears. I still remember the first day we stepped inside. My husband's hands rough from labour, his eyes alight with pride as he looked at the home he had built for us with nothing but grit and his will to provide. He laid every brick as though it were a prayer, a promise to me and to the children we were raising. Back then, life was not easy. There were nights when supper was little more than bread and broth, and mornings when he rose before the sun, shoulders aching from yesterday's toil, yet ready to face another day. But even in hardship, our home gave us strength. The walls embraced us, kept the cold winds away, and within them I watched my children grow. Their laughter echoed through the hallways, their feet pounded up and down the stairs. Their cries in the night pulled me from my sleep. Every sound was sacred, every mark on the wall, a memory carved into time. My son, the one whose choices would one day bring me to ruin, was once the brightest of them all. His eyes were sharp, filled with curiosity, and his smile could melt even the hardest of days. He would sit beside his father, mimicking his movements, pretending to build with scraps of wood, saying, "One day I'll make a house even bigger than this." I believed him then. I believed in his dreams, in the goodness I thought was stitched into his heart. As the years passed, I held on to those moments tightly. Each birthday we celebrated in that house, each holiday where family gathered around the table, each prayer whispered in the quiet of night, all of it felt eternal. I thought nothing could shake us, not the storms that rattled the windows, not the lean years that tested our patience, not even the silence that sometimes fell between us as life grew heavy. But time has a way of changing things, doesn't it? Children grow, and with growth comes distance. My son no longer sat beside his father, no longer looked at the house with wonder. He began to look outward beyond our walls, chasing something I could not see. His voice grew sharper, his visits shorter, his eyes clouded with thoughts he did not share. And though I felt the shift, I told myself it was just youth, just restlessness. He would return, I thought. He would remember the roots that held him steady. Still, I clung to the hope that love was enough. Love for a son, love for a home, love for the life we built. I never imagined that love could be so easily ignored, that greed could speak louder than memory, louder than blood. Looking back now, I realize betrayal does not arrive in a sudden storm. It creeps in quietly like a shadow slipping beneath the door, unnoticed until it has already filled the room. My son's shadow was growing, though I could not yet name it. I only knew that sometimes when I caught him watching me, his gaze seemed distant, as though he was already planning a future where I was not a part. And yet, even with the unease stirring in my chest, I never stopped trusting him. because that is what mothers do. We trust, even when trust is undeserved. We love, even when love is returned with silence. If only I had known what was coming. If only I had seen the papers he hid, the deals he struck, the lies he told. Maybe I could have stopped it. Maybe I could have saved the home that meant everything. But life does not give us warnings, only consequences. And so in the glow of those early years, in the warmth of family dinners and the innocence of a child's laughter, the seeds of heartbreak were already sown. Seeds I would one day be forced to harvest with trembling hands. The first signs of change were subtle, almost invisible, like cracks in a foundation hidden beneath the paint. My son began coming home later, his excuses vague, his eyes avoiding mine when I asked where he had been. At first I brushed it aside. A mother tells herself what she must. He is busy, he is finding his way, he is building his life. But deep down a whisper stirred, telling me something was wrong. Our dinners grew quieter. He would sit across from me, his plate half touched, his gaze fixed somewhere far beyond the kitchen walls. When I tried to draw him into conversation about work, about friends, about the future, his answers were clipped, distracted, as though his mind were already elsewhere. I searched his face for the boy I once knew, the boy whose laughter filled this house, but I saw only a man closing doors between us one by one. There were moments when his phone would ring and he would step outside to answer it, his voice low, urgent, carrying tones I had never heard before. I pressed my ear to the wall once, heart racing like a thief in my own home. I caught fragments, talk of money, of opportunity, of deals that promised more than I could imagine. His words were coated in excitement, but beneath them I heard something darker, a hunger that unsettled me. I tried to speak with him. One evening, as we sat together, I reached across the table, my hand trembling as it rested on his. "Son," I whispered, "is everything all right? You seem so far away these days." For a moment, I thought I saw softness flicker in his eyes, but it vanished quickly, replaced by a sharpness I barely recognized. He pulled his hand back, muttered, "I'm fine, Ma," and changed the subject. Fine. That word became a wall between us. Every time I asked, that was his answer. Fine, but nothing was fine. The air grew heavy with unspoken truths, the silence between us louder than any storm. My husband, already weary with age, noticed my worry. He would place a gentle hand on my shoulder and remind me, "He's young. He'll find his way. Don't press too hard." His faith in our son remained steady, unshaken, but mine began to tremble, for I knew a mother's intuition does not lie. Some nights I wandered the halls alone, my bare feet brushing against the wooden floors. I paused in front of photographs hanging on the wall, images of birthdays, graduations, family gatherings. I traced my son's smiling face with my finger, whispering to the boy he once was, begging him silently to return. "Don't lose yourself," I prayed. "Don't lose us." But the boy in the picture remained frozen, unreachable. And then there were his absences, whole weekends where I did not see him, where I sat by the window watching the road, waiting for his return. When he finally came home, the smell of alcohol lingered on his clothes, and sometimes money bulged in his pockets. I wanted to ask where it came from, but fear held me back. I feared the answer. One night he lingered at the door before leaving again. His hand gripped the knob, his back turned to me, his shoulders tense. For a moment I thought he might speak, might turn and share the secret weighing him down. I held my breath, waiting, but after a pause his hand twisted the knob and he walked out into the night without a word. The sound of the door closing echoed through the house like a verdict. Still I held on to hope. That's what mothers do. We hope against reason, against evidence, against truth. I told myself he was just lost for a while, that he would find his way back, that the son I raised could not be capable of cruelty. But love can blind us, and I was blind. The night before the strangers came, I sat by the window in silence. The moonlight spilled across the floor, pale and soft, and I prayed, Lord, protect this house. Protect my son. Protect what we have built. I did not know why the desperation rose so strong in my chest that evening, but perhaps a mother always knows when a storm is near, even if she cannot see it. The storm was near. Closer than I dared to believe, my son, my own blood, had already placed his name on papers that would strip me of the only sanctuary I had ever known. The betrayal had already walked through my door, carried in his footsteps. I just hadn't seen it yet. Soon there would be a knock that would split my life into before and after. And when I opened that door, the truth would stand before me in the form of strangers. The morning it happened was quiet, almost tender. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, painting golden stripes across the kitchen floor. I brewed tea, humming softly, trying to ignore the heaviness that had lived in my chest for weeks. For a brief moment, life felt normal again, until the knock came. It was sharp, deliberate, not the casual tap of a neighbour or a friendly call. Something in that sound made my heart stumble. I wiped my hands on my apron and went to the door, telling myself it was nothing. But when I opened it, I found two strangers standing there, papers clutched in their hands, smiles too wide, too polished. "Good morning," the man said kindly. "We're here to see our house." Our house, that's what he called it. My ears rang, my knees weakened. I gripped the door frame to keep from falling. I looked at them, then back at the papers they held out, covered in signatures and seals. My son's name was there, written bold, unmistakable. He had sold our home, the very heart of our lives, without a word to me. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. "There must be some mistake," I whispered. "This is my house. My husband built it with his own hands. We raised our children here. This can't be true." But the woman shook her head gently. "I'm sorry. It's all legal. Your son handled everything." Her words pierced deeper than any blade. My son, my boy, the one I had carried in my arms, nursed when he was sick, prayed for in the dark of night. He had not only betrayed me, he had erased me, treating me like nothing more than an obstacle standing in the way of his profit. The strangers stood awkwardly on the step, their politeness a cruel contrast to the violence of the moment. I could see pity in their eyes, but pity did nothing to mend the fracture ripping through me. I closed the door slowly, my hands trembling, the world spinning around me. Inside, the silence pressed down heavy. I stumbled to the kitchen table and sank into the chair, staring at the kettle, its whistle long gone. Steam no longer rose. It was as cold as the house now felt. The stranger's words replayed in my mind, each one hammering against my heart. Our house, our house, our house. Hours passed in a blur. When my son returned that evening, I was still sitting there, the papers spread before me like evidence of a crime. He paused in the doorway, his face unreadable. I lifted my eyes to him, tears burning, and whispered, "Why?" He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. "It's complicated, Ma," he muttered. Complicated. As though betrayal could ever be complicated, as though selling the very walls that sheltered me, that sheltered him, could be softened by excuses. I slammed my hand against the papers. Complicated. You sold your father's work, you sold my life, you sold everything we built, and you didn't even tell me. Finally, his eyes met mine, but they were hard, distant. "It's done," he said flatly. "There's nothing you can do now." And just like that, he walked past me, deeper into the very house he had given away, as if it were still his to claim. That night I did not sleep. I wandered through the rooms, my hands trailing along the walls, whispering apologies to the house itself. In the living room, I saw shadows of children building forts out of blankets. In the hallway, I heard their laughter echoing on the stairs. In the kitchen, I smelled bread rising, my husband's arms wrapping around me as we shared quiet moments. Every corner held a memory, and every memory tightened the knife in my chest. By dawn, I knew what awaited. The strangers would return, not just with papers this time, but with boxes, with plans, with the intent to claim what was never truly theirs. The house would no longer be mine, no longer be ours, and I would be forced to leave behind the only place I had ever called home. The knock had shattered my world, but the true heartbreak, the moment I stepped aside and let them in, was still to come. The day I left that house felt like burying a loved one. I walked down the front steps slowly, each step heavier than the last, a small bag clutched in my hand. Behind me, the windows stared like cold eyes, watching me go. I did not look back because I knew if I did, I would collapse right there on the path and beg the earth itself to swallow me. The strangers moved inside as if they belonged, their voices echoing in rooms still warm with my memories, my son. He stood silent, offering no hand, no comfort, no explanation. That silence wounded me more than the papers, more than the loss. I found shelter in a small house at the edge of town. Its walls were bare, its floors creaked, and its roof leaked when it rained. But it gave me what I needed most, a place to breathe, a place to grieve, a place to survive. I filled it with what I carried inside, my husband's memory, my children's laughter, my prayers whispered into the night. Slowly, the little house became more than walls. It became proof that even when everything is taken, life still finds a way to root itself again. Time has a strange way of softening wounds while deepening their scars. 20 years have passed since that knock, yet I remember it as if it were yesterday. I remember the papers, the shame, the silence of betrayal. But I also remember what came after, because life has a way of bringing truth to the surface no matter how deep it is buried. My son, the one who signed away our sanctuary, did not find the life he thought awaited him. At first, I heard stories. He walked with pride, flashing money, boasting of the deals he made. But pride built on betrayal is a house made of sand, and the tide always comes. The investments failed, the money vanished. The friends who praised him were gone when he had nothing left to offer. He ended up with debts, with shame, with a loneliness deeper than the one he had forced upon me. I saw him again years later. His hair had grown grey, his shoulders bent beneath the weight of regret. When he entered my little home, he did not come as a son triumphant, but as a man broken. His eyes, once sharp with ambition, now carried a softness edged with sorrow. He sat before me, silent, searching my face as though words failed him. I did not ask him to explain. I did not recount the nights I cried, the prayers I whispered into the dark, the pain of watching strangers take the life I had built. Instead, I placed my hand gently on his, old skin against old skin. "You are my son," I said softly. "That will never change. But understand this, the house you sold was never truly ours to keep. It belonged to time, to love, to memory. Those things cannot be bought, and they cannot be taken." His eyes filled with tears then, tears he had held back for years. I knew he longed for forgiveness, though he could not say the word. And in that moment, I understood something I had carried all along. Betrayal may wound the betrayed, but it poisons the betrayer most of all. Now as I sit by the window of my small home, I watch the seasons pass. The garden outside is modest, but it blooms each spring. The walls are plain, but they hold my stories. I am no longer bitter. My heart carries scars, yes, but scars are proof of survival. And though my son lives with regret, I live with peace. If my story has meaning for you, let it be this. Guard what truly matters. Guard your family, your trust, your honour. Money will slip away like water through your fingers, but the bonds of love, once broken, leave a wound no wealth can heal. My son sold a house, but in truth he sold his own peace, his own dignity, and though he seeks it still, he may never find it again. A house can be sold, but a mother's heart should never be. Remember that, carry it with you, and may you never find yourself standing at a door, as I once did, facing strangers where your children once played.